There's a new beat in town. Welcome to Bullet and Flight Music Store, your premier spot for music, books, and one-of-a-kind novelties. Looking to treat yourself or find a unique gift for the music lover in your life? We make it easy. In fact, you can start your collection today for as low as 44 cents. That's right, world-class finds for less than a cup of coffee. Visit us online at bulletinflightmusic.shopify.com. Plus, keep the conversation going 24/7 with Bullet in Flight Radio on Podbean. Bullet in Flight. Find your rhythm, find your soul.
To keep the faith and trust, knowing that you're more than conquerors because you believe me.
Believe in yourself, believe in me. Know that I am for you. Believe in yourself, believe in me. Know that I am for you. Believe in yourself, believe in me. Know that I am for you. Believe in yourself, believe in me. Know that I am. Folks always got something to say, love to criticize you in every way. Instead of taking what's wrong out of their own eyes, they'd rather whisper and make fun than deny. Believe in yourself, believe in me. Know that I am for you. Believe in yourself, believe her. Believe in me. Know that I am for you. Believe in yourself, believe her. Believe in me. Know that I am for you. Believe in yourself, believe her. Believe in me. Know that I am.
This song is all about belief and believing in oneself. Don't let anyone make you doubt yourself, for you are a new creature God created.
They spread little rumors, tell lies, little foxes destroy the vine. You feel so shaked up, you wanna wake up, so stay on your knees. I'm begging you, please forget your enemies. What's down in the dark will see the light. It will be alright. Believe in me, believe in yourself. Believe in me. Know that I am for you. Believe in yourself. Believe in me. Know that I am for you. Believe in yourself. Believe in me. Know that I am for you. Believe in me. Yeah. Yeah. Believer. Believe in yourself. Believe in me. Know that I am for you. Believe in me. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, believer, believe in me.
Hello, everyone. This is Bishop Natasha Ellison from Come Alive Outreach, and you're listening to Bullet in Flight Radio, your story, our station, the best progressive Christian network in the world.
You were never meant to worship the Christ. You were meant to awaken the light of Christ within yourself.
There will come a time when the hidden eye reopens, when the ones who have been walking through life half asleep suddenly feel something burning in their chest, whispering, "There is more." That time is not in some distant prophecy. That time is now. And if you are hearing these words, it means that deep inside, you already know it. For 2,000 years, you were given a version of Jesus that was safe, domesticated, predictable, a Jesus to be worshipped from a distance, not a Jesus who handed you the keys to the same light that moved through him. But beneath the sermons, beneath the rituals, beneath the layers of doctrine, there is a code. A sentence so strange, so anatomically wrong, that people gloss over it without ever asking the only real question that matters. What was he actually pointing to? In Matthew 6:22, Jesus says, "The light of the body is the eye. If therefore thine eye be single, thy whole body shall be full of light." Stop for a second. Feel how bizarre that is. You don't have a single eye, you have two. Jesus was not confused about basic human anatomy. So either he was speaking nonsense, or he was speaking in a language the surface mind was never meant to understand. This is where the hidden teaching lives. The early mystics knew it, the Gnostics knew it, the desert fathers and mothers knew it. That's why texts like the Gospel of Thomas speak of a light within a person of light that illuminates the whole world if it is awakened. They weren't talking about a theology. They were talking about an inner perception, an inner organ of seeing. Look at the symbols that keep repeating across cultures. In Egypt, the eye of Horus placed right at the center of the forehead. In Hinduism, the Ajna chakra, the inner eye of wisdom. In Christian art, golden halos radiating from behind the skull, exactly where the brain's secret center lies. Ask yourself, why did all of them choose that same spot? Why always the head, the brow, the light? Because they were all guarding the same secret. There is an eye inside you that doesn't look outward into the world, but inward into the kingdom. When Jesus said, "If thine eye be single, thy whole body shall be full of light," he wasn't offering a poetic metaphor. He was describing a state, a configuration of consciousness, a moment when the fragmented way you look at life collapses into one clear, unified seeing, and a lamp inside you switches on. The church taught you to fear that inner gaze. Religion told you truth was out there, in books, in buildings, in the mouths of authorized men. But Jesus said something far more dangerous. The light you are begging heaven for is already inside you, waiting for the single eye to open. The human body as the true temple blueprint. When Jesus stood before the stunned priests and declared, "Destroy this temple, and in 3 days I will raise it up," they scoffed. The stones of Jerusalem's great sanctuary had taken 46 years to build. How could any man rebuild it in 3 days? But the Gospel of John quietly adds the line that changes everything. He spoke of the temple of his body. This was no clever wordplay. It was the second code, even more subversive than the first. Jesus was not saying his body alone was the temple. He was revealing the true nature of every human being. The sacred space where heaven meets earth has never been a cathedral constructed of marble and gold. It has always been flesh, blood, breath, and awareness. The temple is not something you enter. The temple is something you are. Ancient builders understood this long before modern religion forgot it. Every sacred temple followed an identical design: an outer court, an inner court, and finally the Holy of Holies, the most forbidden chamber on earth, entered only once a year by the high priest. Inside that chamber burned the eternal lamp, the seven-branched menorah that was never allowed to go out. Now lay that ancient blueprint over your own body. The outer court mirrors your physical senses and actions, how you move through the material world. The inner court corresponds to your emotional body, the altar of sacrifice in the heart, where devotion, longing, grief, and love rise like smoke toward the unseen. And the Holy of Holies? That sacred chamber does not sit in the sky or behind a veil of stone. It rests at the center of your brain, precisely where the pineal gland is concealed like a jewel hidden in bone. Even the menorah's flame has an echo inside you. The living lamp of the temple was never meant to burn with oil alone. It symbolized the inner light housed behind the single eye. The same light Jesus spoke of. The same light mystics across civilizations trained themselves to awaken. And then there is the ladder. When the patriarch Jacob dreamed of angels ascending and descending between heaven and earth, the vision wasn't simply prophetic drama, it was anatomy wrapped in myth. The spine is your personal Jacob's ladder, a vertical bridge linking the base of the body to the crown of the skull, guiding currents of energy upward toward the sanctuary of awareness. Long before Kundalini became a modern buzzword, initiates knew that the body moved light the way temples moved prayer, vertically from root to spirit. The deeper you examine this mystery, the clearer the pattern becomes. Everything Jesus taught outwardly was meant to be realized inwardly. When he spoke of knocking so that the door may open, he wasn't describing a plea to heaven. He was describing the opening of the Holy of Holies inside the human form. When he spoke of an indwelling kingdom, he wasn't promising a distant celestial future. He was pointing to a living sanctuary already breathing within you. Heaven and earth converge not in sacred buildings, rituals, or intermediaries. They meet in the human body itself, the true temple where spirit remembers it has become flesh. Pineal gland, science and the biological third eye. For centuries, mystics spoke of an inner eye, and theologians dismissed it as metaphor. But the moment science began peeling back the layers of the brain, something unexpected appeared. Not poetry, not symbolism, but biology quietly echoing the ancient teaching. Buried at the geometric center of the brain is a tiny pinecone-shaped structure known as the pineal gland. René Descartes called it the seat of the soul, not because he was mystical, but because even in his time it stood alone, the only unpaired structure in the brain perfectly aligned at its center. One eye, single, exactly where ancient traditions had always placed the inner lamp. Modern research has revealed something even stranger. Studies from the University of Rochester and independent neuroanatomical mapping confirm that the pineal gland contains cells remarkably similar to retinal photoreceptors, the same light-sensing tissue used by your eyes to see the external world. During embryological development, the pineal begins forming from the same tissue lineage that creates the eyes themselves. In plain language, the pineal gland is not just metaphorically an eye, it is biologically descended from one. Why would the human brain evolve a hidden sensory structure that responds to light when you already possess two fully functional eyes? The pineal does not face outward for physical vision. It faces inward, regulating internal light cycles through melatonin production and activating during dream states, deep meditation, and visionary experiences. Neuroscience documents its command over circadian rhythm and altered states of awareness. When it releases melatonin, you enter dream worlds and encounter realities that feel just as vivid as waking life. When its chemical cascade shifts, as happens during near-death states, deep contemplation, or advanced meditation, people across cultures report luminous inner visions, expanded perception, encounters beyond space and time. Science doesn't deny these phenomena. It simply hasn't yet found language for their meaning. What mystics said was simple. The pineal gland is the doorway between dimensions of awareness. a neurological bridge between the measurable world and the invisible realm of consciousness, between the seen and the unseen. But here's where ancient warning meets modern revelation. The pineal calcifies over time. Mineral deposits harden the gland as the body ages, a process accelerated by stress, poor sleep cycles, and environmental toxins. As calcification rises, melatonin sensitivity drops, dream recall weakens, and the once vivid inner world grows quiet. The ancient initiates understood this long before laboratory microscopes could confirm it. They cultivated the pineal deliberately through meditation, prayerful stillness, dietary purification, sound resonance, and breath discipline, all methods designed to keep the inner lamp burning. Halos weren't artistic flourishes. They were symbolic representations of perceived inner radiance. Crown lights reported by monks, yogis, and saints were not decorative myths. They were descriptions of awakened neurological luminosity filtered through cultural imagery. Jesus never asked you to imagine light metaphorically. He spoke literally. If the inner eye awakens, your whole body shall be filled with light. Until science caught up, no one realized how precise those words truly were. The single eye Jesus revealed wasn't a parable. It was biology waiting to be remembered. Halos, Horus, and the global third eye convergence. Once you recognize the pineal gland as the luminous center Jesus was pointing toward, something extraordinary begins to happen. Every ancient symbol suddenly locks into place like pieces of a single forgotten map. Across continents, religions, and centuries, civilizations that never spoke to one another all pointed to the same hidden doorway inside the human head. In ancient Egypt, the Eye of Horus was not merely a protective talisman. Its geometry maps directly onto the anatomical shape of the pineal gland and surrounding brain structures. The eye was always drawn hovering between the brows, never on the forehead by accident, always centered where inner sight is felt in meditation. Egyptian temples were engraved with the symbol not to glorify a god outside of humanity, but to signify the awakening vision within the priestly initiate. In India, the Ajna chakra, the command center of consciousness, occupies that exact same midline point in the skull. Yogic texts describe it as the seat of intuition, perception beyond time, and direct knowing. This chakra is not awakened through belief, but through disciplined inward attention. Tritaka meditation, focusing awareness between the brows, was designed specifically to stimulate the inner sensory apparatus, what Western mystics later would call the single eye. In Tibet, monks sit in deep contemplative posture with their gaze subtly turned inward and upward, softening the outer eyes while centering attention behind the forehead. Their practices were never aesthetic rituals. They were neurological activations whose results could be felt physiologically as warmth, pulsing, tingling, even pressure at the brow point. Then there is Christian art, perhaps the most startling convergence of all. Early Byzantine icons began painting glowing discs of light behind the heads of saints, apostles, and ultimately Jesus himself. No scripture ever commanded halos. They were not part of church doctrine. They emerged because mystics saw something, a radiance perceived around the skull crown during deep communion. Painters translated interior perception into visible symbolism. The halo was never about holiness bestowed from above. It was about illumination awakened from within. Every tradition, stripped of dogma, preserved the same message in visual code. When the inner eye awakens, light shines from the temple of the body. The skull becomes the sanctuary. The flame becomes visible consciousness. Modern observers mistake these global convergences as coincidence or myth borrowing, but the cultures involved often developed independently. What connected them wasn't exchanged symbolism. It was shared human neurology. Wherever humans looked inward long enough, they found the same gateway, and when they found it, language failed them. So they turned to symbols instead, eyes, flames, halos, suns, crowns, radiating light, different visual tongues describing the same invisible awakening. Jesus' words slip seamlessly into this global pattern. When he spoke of light filling the body through the single eye, he wasn't launching a new religious concept. He was articulating a timeless truth humans had whispered from cave temples to desert monasteries to Himalayan peaks. Divine perception does not descend from the heavens. It awakens from the human mind itself. The world never lacked prophets. It only forgot that all of them were pointing back toward the same luminous doorway, hidden inside you. Resurrection as neurological awakening. One of the strangest habits Jesus had was the way he spoke about death. When Jairus' daughter lay motionless, presumed dead, Jesus dismissed the mourning crowd and calmly said, "She is not dead, she is sleeping." When Lazarus had been sealed in the tomb for days, Jesus told his disciples plainly, "Our friend Lazarus has fallen asleep." People thought he was being poetic or delusional or cruelly insensitive. They never considered the possibility that he was being literal from a consciousness perspective they no longer understood. Sleep and death, he was implying, are not opposites. They are neighboring doorways. Every night when you drift into sleep, the pineal gland becomes chemically dominant. Melatonin floods the brain. The analytical mind quiets. Ordinary sensory boundaries dissolve. You leave physical awareness behind and step into a different realm altogether, a place where time bends, identities shift, and impossible worlds feel completely real. You meet people long gone. You experience futures that haven't arrived. You move through dimensions your waking logic cannot map. If dreams were mere random firings of neurons, they would lack narrative consistency, emotional coherence, and structured environments. Yet dream studies show stable architectures of experience that closely resemble waking perception, simply without physical limitations. Mystics understood what science only hints at. Sleep opens the gate between perceptual worlds. And when that gate begins to open while awake, something remarkable occurs. What prophets, saints, and shamans have called vision. Vision is not imagination. It is perception rerouted inward through the same apparatus that normally projects images of the outer world, and that apparatus is anchored in the pineal gland. When soldiers in battlefield trauma report time stopping and seeing brilliant light, pineal activation is involved. When monks enter luminous states of ecstasy, pineal rhythms surge. When near-death experiencers describe leaving the body and witnessing radiant realms beyond physical boundaries, the same melatonin dimethyltryptamine cascade appears to be at play. Jesus' calling death sleep didn't deny physical reality, it reframed consciousness survival. If sleep shifts awareness without ending existence, perhaps death functions as a deeper shift of the same kind. The resurrection story takes on a stunningly different meaning in this light. Paul wrote, "Awake, thou that sleepest, and arise from the dead, and Christ shall give thee light." Resurrection here is not portrayed as a corpse standing up, but as awakening from unconsciousness into luminous perception. Resurrection is not a historical event alone. It is an inner event repeated every time consciousness awakens from darkness into knowing. Each morning you already rehearse resurrection. You die to the dream world and rise to waking perception. The only difference between ordinary living and Christ consciousness is depth of awakening. Most people rise from sleep, but never rise from the trance of unconscious existence. Eyes open, yet no inner seeing. Bodies alive, yet spiritually asleep. Jesus did not come simply to prove a miracle over death. He came to demonstrate what awakening looks like in human form. Resurrection was his ultimate teaching, not something to admire from a distance, but a state of awareness to be entered while you are still breathing. To arise from the dead was always an invitation, not to exit the world, but to wake up inside it. The suppression of inner Christ teachings. The question no one asks is the most dangerous one of all. If Jesus taught that the kingdom of God was within you, why didn't Christianity become the world's greatest inner awakening movement? Because power does not thrive where people have direct access to truth. In the first centuries after Jesus' death, there were many forms of Christianity. Some worshipped him as divine royalty. Others followed his teachings of inner illumination and gnosis, direct knowing of God without intermediaries. These mystic Christians believed the Christ was not only a person, but a state of awakened consciousness available to all. They meditated. They practiced inward communion. They spoke openly of the divine spark hidden within every soul, and they were systematically erased. When the Roman Empire adopted Christianity, spirituality became state infrastructure. Faith was centralized. Authority was codified. Spiritual power shifted from inner experience into church hierarchies. Salvation became something dispensed, not something discovered. Gospel texts that emphasized inner awakening were removed or condemned. The Gospel of Thomas spoke of light inside the individual. Banned. The Gospel of Mary Magdalene taught direct communion beyond priesthood. Suppressed. Any scripture pointing to personal divine authority was labeled dangerous heresy. Rome didn't fear Jesus as a Messiah figure. It feared what he empowered. Sovereign spiritual citizens. A populace that believed God lived inside them would never submit to spiritual taxation, never accept moral control systems, and never require institutional gatekeepers to touch the divine. So doctrine was edited. Instead of, "You are the temple," believers were taught they were born broken. Instead of, "The kingdom is within," they were told heaven lay beyond death. Instead of the single eye, they were offered blind obedience. A theology of unworthiness replaced the gospel of illumination. Guilt supplanted light. Fear replaced remembrance. And perhaps the most subtle shift of all, Jesus became someone to be worshipped rather than someone to be followed into the same realization he embodied. John 14:12. "The works that I do shall you do also, and greater works than these shall you do." This was dangerous scripture. It implied spiritual equality, replication, and awakening, not dependency. Over time, it faded into theological background noise, overshadowed by doctrines emphasizing separation between Christ and humanity. The Romanized Church did not teach that Jesus was showing you what you could become, only what you were never allowed to be. But that suppression never worked completely. In caves, in deserts, in secret monasteries, among Gnostic communities and Sufi mystics and yogic adepts, the inner teachings persisted. They were whispered instead of shouted, hidden instead of institutionalized, passed teacher to student beneath the radar of empire and orthodoxy. And they survived. History did not bury these truths. It merely delayed their rediscovery. Every generation produces a small remnant who begin to sense that something essential went missing from religion, a feeling that worship without awakening is incomplete, that reverence without inner realization is hollow. If you feel that disquiet stirring inside you now, you are not alone. It is the echo of teachings the world once tried to silence, and that silence is breaking. Awakening practices, activating the inner lamp. Knowing the truth of the inner temple means nothing unless the lamp inside it is actually lit. For centuries, mystics across traditions developed techniques not to worship light, but to awaken it directly within the nervous system. These were not superstition or fantasy. They were carefully refined practices designed to stimulate the pineal gland and stabilize higher states of awareness. The first and most universal method is stillness. The pineal becomes active when sensory input quiets. Silence is not absence. It is neurological space. When external stimuli dim, internal perception brightens. Ancient prayer was not verbal petition but inward attention. allowing the mind to settle until awareness folds back upon itself like a lens turning inward. The second method is low-light fasting. Darkness naturally increases melatonin, heightening pineal sensitivity. Monks and yogis would deliberately retreat into dim environments for extended meditation sessions. Even short periods of sitting in total darkness amplify inner visual activity. Modern neuroscience confirms this. Reduced light exposure increases the brain's sensitivity to internal imagery and dreamlike perception while awake. The third practice is breath-centered focus. Slow rhythmic breathing activates the parasympathetic nervous system, synchronizing heart coherence with brainwave activity. As physiological noise quiets, awareness gravitates toward the brow center naturally. Many experience pressure, warmth, or tingling behind the forehead, early signs of pineal stimulation. Sound became another tool of awakening. Chanting, humming, and resonant frequencies were not religious rituals. They were vibrational harmonics that affected cranial resonance. Research from neuroacoustics labs now shows certain frequencies stabilize gamma brain waves associated with altered states of perception. Ancient syllables like Om and sacred toning were neurological tuning forks designed to awaken inner coherence. Nutrition also played a role. Traditions of purification avoided substances known today to disrupt endocrine function. Heavy metals, environmental toxins, processed chemicals. While modern societies overlook this relationship, ancient initiations preserved biological constraints to protect clarity of perception. Most importantly, the awakening process was never forced. Illumination does not respond to strain or desperation. It responds to invitation. The more relaxed the mind, the more readily inner vision begins to emerge. And the moment almost everyone experiences at least once? It happens in the twilight state, when you're drifting between waking and sleep. Images flash, lights pulse, awareness detaches from the body. Thoughts become symbolic rather than verbal. These moments are often dismissed as hypnagogic hallucinations, but they are in fact the pineal transitional window, the gateway state mystics cultivated deliberately. The inner lamp awakens gradually. Flickers of light appear. Pressure in the brow grows. Emotional clarity deepens. Compassion expands. The personality loosens its grip. Fear loses intensity. Identity becomes wider. This is not fantasy. EEG research from meditation labs shows that deep contemplative practitioners demonstrate increased gamma synchronization across neural networks. The same brain signature recorded in advanced lucid dreamers and visionary states. Awakening the inner eye does not make you supernatural. It makes you naturally conscious. It does not remove you from the world. It allows you to finally see it, and yourself, clearly from within. The lamp was never meant to stay dormant. It was always waiting for your attention. Christ consciousness explained. When the term Christ consciousness is stripped of both religious dogma and modern fantasy, what remains is something far more profound and transformative than either side realizes. Christ was never meant to be a surname. It was a title. The Greek word Christos means the anointed, and anointing was never about divine favoritism bestowed upon one man. It referred to the activation of luminous awareness, the oil of illumination flowing through the inner lamp of consciousness. Christ consciousness, then, is not worship of Jesus. It is the state of being that Jesus lived from. When he said, "I and the Father are one," he was not claiming superiority. He was describing unity, a consciousness in which personal identity dissolves into universal awareness. When he declared, "Ye are gods," he was naming what humanity had forgotten, that the same divine presence animates every person. This understanding redefines John 14:12. "The works that I do shall you do also, and greater works than these." That statement would be meaningless if Jesus were declaring himself singularly divine. It only makes sense if he was preparing humanity to enter the same elevated state of consciousness he embodied, not to worship his achievements, but to replicate them internally. Christ consciousness is the awakened state where the illusion of separation collapses. You no longer experience yourself as a fragment struggling against a hostile universe. You realize you are an expression of the universe itself, consciousness looking through human form. This state produces unmistakable effects. Fear diminishes because identity expands beyond the survival-driven ego. Compassion arises naturally, not as moral obligation, but as the felt recognition that no boundary truly separates self from other. Intuition sharpens because perception gains depth beyond logic-based thinking. Synchronicity becomes frequent as consciousness aligns with the natural ordering of experience. Ancient yogic traditions called this samadhi, Buddhists called it bodhi, Christian mystics called it theosis, divinization. Gnostics simply called it knowing God directly, sans intermediaries. Each term points to the same transformation. The pineal lamp switching on and illuminating the mind-body organism as one coherent field of awareness. Modern neuroscience hints at this state. EEG studies of long-term meditators reveal heightened coherence across neural networks, a global integration of brain activity that corresponds with reported experiences of boundlessness, unity, timelessness, and luminous awareness. In such states, the sense of being a separate observer collapses. Existence feels participatory rather than confrontational. Jesus' lived demonstration of this state made him appear miraculous, walking above fear, speaking beyond convention, radiating healing presence. But the miracles were not the point. The point was the movement of consciousness he embodied. He was not declaring himself the endpoint of human evolution. He was the prototype. Christ consciousness is simply humanity remembering its next stage of awareness, moving from survival identity to unified perception, from worshiping light as something outside to becoming aware of the light already shining within. The Christ was never meant to return from the clouds. The Christ returns every time a human being awakens to the light inside themselves and lives from it. Soul contracts, before birth life and reincarnational journey. If Christ consciousness represents awakening within a single lifetime, the deeper question becomes unavoidable. Why does each soul awaken at such different speeds and through such wildly different circumstances? The ancient answer was never moral judgment or divine favoritism. It was continuity. Across cultures, the soul was understood not as a one-time visitor to Earth, but as an evolving traveler moving through many lifetimes of experience, memory, forgetting, and reawakening. Each incarnation was viewed as a chapter in a much longer curriculum of consciousness. What modern science has quietly uncovered supports what ancient mystics taught. At the University of Virginia, psychiatrist Dr. Ian Stevenson documented over 2,500 verified cases of children recalling detailed memories of lives they never physically lived. Names, locations, deaths, information corroborated through historical records. These were not vague dreams, but structured identity recall, before neurological pruning erased the memories. Near-death research from cardiologist Dr. Jeffrey Long's NDERF database has compiled thousands of accounts of consciousness persisting beyond clinical brain death, with experiences describing life reviews that include moral insight, relational patterns, and interconnected soul themes, suggesting ongoing awareness beyond bodily termination. Hypnotherapist Michael Newton's regression studies added a third data stream. Subjects under deep state recall consistently described pre-birth planning sessions, moments of soul selection in which life circumstances, parents, geographic location, and major challenges were chosen not randomly, but deliberately for growth. Across these data, a singular picture emerges. Souls incarnate with contracts, agreements to encounter specific relationships, obstacles, and emotional lessons that catalyze awakening. Trauma becomes transformational. Difficulty becomes curriculum. Even family bonds are not biologically random. They emerge from shared past life entanglements, forming soul groups that evolve together across time. In this framework, the world itself becomes a consciousness academy. Earth life is not punishment, it is practice. A forgetting chamber where souls temporarily lose memory of their origin, so awakening may become authentic rather than staged. This is why some people feel spiritually awake from childhood while others awaken after decades of suffering. Different soul trajectories produce different timing for remembrance. Christ consciousness represents the point in that evolutionary arc where the soul begins remembering while still embodied, merging human identity with eternal awareness. The pineal gland becomes the neurological ignition for that remembrance process. As each incarnation passes, awakening deepens. Compassion softens karmic loops. Awareness integrates lessons from previous lifetimes. Consciousness expands beyond personal survival and into collective coherence. The mystics taught that reincarnation is not an endless cycle of suffering. It is a spiral. Each return ascends consciousness slightly higher than before. Eventually, the soul graduates from compulsory incarnations, returning only to assist others rather than forget itself again. This ancient teaching reframes destiny entirely. If life difficulties were not punishments but assignments, if relationships were not accidents but reunions, if your deepest wounds were not curses but conscience accelerators, then everything changes. You were not thrown into life at random. You were sent. Your soul accepted a contract, one that included the moment you are living right now. And your inner lamp awakening? That was always part of the mission. Realizing the living Christ. Knowledge alone never completes an awakening. Experience must seal it. This final moment is not about information. It is about remembering what has already begun stirring within you. Wherever you are right now, soften your body. Let your shoulders loosen. Allow your breath to slow naturally. You don't have to close your eyes unless you wish. Simply bring your awareness gently inward. Now guide your attention to the center point behind your forehead, not on the skin, not between the brows on the surface, but deeper, about 2 inches into the skull, toward the brain's midpoint where the pineal rests quietly. You may feel nothing at first, or you may notice subtle pressure, warmth, or a faint pulsing. Whatever appears is enough. Imagine a small golden flame glowing at that center point, not blazing, just living. Gentle, awake. With each breath in, imagine the flame growing brighter. With each breath out, imagine light flowing outward from it into your head. Let that light soften your thoughts. Let it move downward into your throat, relaxing expression. Let it expand into your chest, warming the heart. Let it spread into your stomach, calming tension. Let it flow into your arms and hands, filling them with quiet presence. Let it descend into your legs, grounding radiance into the earth. Now feel the light surrounding your body, a luminous field extending beyond the skin, the ancient aura mystics glimpsed when consciousness stabilized. You do not have to strain to hold it, simply witness it. And in this luminous awareness, speak inwardly. I am awake. The single eye is open. The Christ lives in me. Stay with that stillness for just a few breaths. What you are experiencing is not imagination. It is neurological coherence aligning with awareness. You are unifying perception, activating the living circuit mystics trained for centuries to awaken. And here is the truth that echoes through every tradition. The second coming was never about a man descending from the sky. It was always about consciousness rising inside humanity, one awakened soul at a time. Every time someone remembers their divine nature while embodied, Christ returns to earth through them. Not as mythology, as lived presence. You were never meant to wait for salvation. You were meant to embody illumination. The lamp within the temple is no longer dormant. The awakening you felt during this teaching is not a fleeting emotional response. It is the early stage of remembrance. Each return to stillness will deepen it. Each act of compassion will stabilize it. Each release of fear will amplify it. The Christ you once prayed to outside yourself now rises inside you, not replacing reverence, but fulfilling it. The prophets were never pointing forward to an external savior. They were pointing inward, to the moment when humanity would remember who it truly is. That remembrance is happening now. Through you. You did not wait for the Christ to come back. You became aware that the living Christ has awakened in you and walks the earth again, in human form, through conscious hearts just like yours. The temple is alive, the lamp is lit, and the light the world has been waiting for has already begun shining from within you.
Hello everybody, this is Terrence Beverly, visionary of Igniters United Alliance. Please join me every Wednesday right here on Bullet in Flight Radio. Your story, our station, the best progressive Christian network in the world.
Thank you. Believers, you've got to keep the faith and trust, knowing that you're more than conquerors because you believe me.
Believe in yourself, believe in me. Believe in yourself, believe in me. Believe in yourself, believe in me. Believe in yourself, believe in me. Folks always got something to say, love to criticize you in every way. Instead of taking what's wrong out of their own eyes, they rather whisper and make fun than deny. Believe in yourself, believe in me. Believe in yourself, believe in me. Believe in yourself, believe in me. Believe in yourself, believe in me.
This song is all about belief and believing in oneself. Don't let anyone make you doubt yourself, for you are a new creature God created.
They spread little rumors, tell lies, little foxes destroy the vine. You feel so shaked up, you wanna wake up, stay on your knees. I'm begging you, please forget your enemies. What's done in the dark will see the light. It will be alright. It will be alright, 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 alright. Believe in yourself, believe in me. Believe in yourself, believe in me. Believe in yourself, believe in me.
Come on.
Believe in yourself, believe in me.
Come on, LA.
Believe in yourself, believe in me. You gotta believe in yourself, believe in me.
The voice of God says,
Believe in yourself, believe in me. Believe in yourself, believe in me.
there's a new beat in town. Welcome to Bullet and Flight Music Store, your premier spot for music, books, and one-of-a-kind novelties. Looking to treat yourself or find a unique gift for the music lover in your life? We make it easy. In fact, you can start your collection today for as low as 44 cents. That's right, world-class finds for less than a cup of coffee. Visit us online at bulletinflightmusic.myshopify.com. Plus, keep the conversation going 24/7 with Bullet in Flight Radio on Podbean. Bullet in Flight. Find your rhythm, find your soul.
Bullet in flight, fly. Bullet in flight, fly. Bullet in flight, bullet in flight, bullet in flight, fly. Bullet in flight, fly. Your story, our station.